In the massive world of One Piece, there's this one name that keeps echoing through history for over 800 years. Joy Boy. He's not an emperor, he's not an admiral. He's more like a ghost from a time nobody's supposed to remember. But here's the thing, this isn't just some old myth. He is the key to, well, everything. So let's get into it.
To really understand who Joy Boy was, we have to start with a period of time that, according to the world's leaders, never even happened.
I mean, think about that. A full 100 years of history, just gone, wiped clean. No records, no history books, nothing. And this wasn't some accident. It was a deliberate, systematic erasure by the world government, the same power that's been ruling for the last 800 years. So you have to ask yourself, what on earth could have happened in that century that was so threatening they had to bury it completely?
But, when you erase a century of history, you're not just getting rid of events. You're erasing people. You're erasing entire ideas. So who was the one person at the very center of it all? Whose legacy was so incredibly dangerous it had to be silenced forever? Well, the government couldn't get rid of everything. Scattered all over the world are these massive, indestructible stone tablets called poneglyphs. They're written in this ancient language that almost nobody can read anymore. They are the only true history of this lost time. And it was on one of these very stones that we first heard the name Joy Boy. And you want to know how? As part of an apology.
So let's unpack that story, right? This is our first real, tangible piece of the puzzle. A huge promise that was made, and a promise that was broken. Okay, so let's go back 800 years. Joy Boy makes his pact with the mermaid princess of Fishman Island. Now, this wasn't just any princess. She held the power of Poseidon, one of the legendary ancient weapons, with the ability to command these colossal sea kings. The plan was to use her insane power to lift a massive ark, the Noah, and finally bring all the fishermen to live on the surface in peace with humans. But something went terribly wrong.
And this is really the heart of the whole mystery. Joy Boy couldn't keep his promise. So instead of leaving behind some grand story of victory, he left a message of failure, carved into a poneglyph, so his apology would survive for centuries. He failed, and for 800 long years, nobody had a clue why.
But here's the thing. Joy Boy wasn't alone. He had an ally, a giant, and I mean colossal, elephant named Zunesa, who has been forced to walk the seas non-stop for 800 years as a punishment for some great crime he committed back in the Void Century. Zunesa is a living, breathing connection to this lost time, and he still remembers the man he served. For centuries, that's pretty much all anyone had, a broken promise and a giant walking elephant. But then, the legend was rediscovered by the one man who actually managed to conquer the entire Grand Line.
Okay, so we're starting here, back in Joy Boy's original time.
Now, let's jump forward almost 800 years to the age of the Pirate King. When Gold D. Roger and his crew finally reached the last island, the one he famously named Laugh Tale, they found way more than just treasure. They found the whole story, the complete, unfiltered history of the Void Century, the truth about the ancient weapons, and the full, unbelievable story of Joy Boy.
And the story he found there affected him so deeply that Roger, the Pirate King himself, just wished he could have lived in the same era as this legendary guy. I mean, just think about that. The most famous pirate in the world felt like he was born at the wrong time. That's how massive Joy Boy's legacy really was. But Roger learned something else, something huge. He realized he wasn't the one the world was waiting for. He was simply too early. There was a prophecy, you see, one that foretold that exactly 800 years after he first appeared, Joy Boy would return, and the stage for his comeback? Wano Country, 20 years after Roger's journey came to an end.
And that basically set a clock ticking. And 20 years later, during this absolutely insane battle for the future of Wano, that clock finally hit zero. In the climax of his fight against the tyrant Kaido, Monkey D. Luffy is pushed past his absolute limit, and his heart stops. It looked like it was all over. But then, something impossible happened. His heart started beating again, but with this strange, rhythmic new sound, a sound that the ancient elephant Zunesa, miles and miles away, recognized in an instant. All the way across the sea, the one living creature who actually knew Joy Boy personally just declares it. The prophecy wasn't a myth. After 800 years of waiting, Joy Boy was back. And his return came with the biggest reveal of all. Luffy's power was never the gum-gum fruit. That was a lie, a name the world government made up to hide its terrifying true nature. Its real name is the human fruit, model Nika, the power of a mythical sun god. And get this, even Kaido was waiting for him. The Emperor of the Beasts wasn't just obsessed with being the strongest, he was obsessed with this prophecy. After he'd defeat some powerful challenger, he would look down at them and say, "So you couldn't be Joy Boy either." He was actively searching for the one person who could fulfill the legend. So, who exactly is this sun god Nika? The awakening of this power connects Luffy not just to Joy Boy, but to an even older, more dangerous legend the world government has tried desperately to erase.
The legend of Nika was this story whispered among slaves for centuries. He was this godlike warrior who would bring smiles and liberation to anyone who is oppressed. He fought with this joyful, almost cartoonish power that could literally bend reality to his will. The very idea of this kind of freedom was so threatening to the world government's control that just speaking his name was a death sentence.
Luffy's awakened form, Gear 5, is the living embodiment of sun god Nika. This reality-bending, laughter-filled power isn't just a new ability, it's the true form of Joy Boy's will, reborn in our time. Joy Boy and Nika, they're one and the same. Luffy is Joy Boy.
800 years ago, the powers that ruled the world today won a war and erased Joy Boy from history. They hunted his allies, they changed the name of his power, and they buried his ideals of freedom deep underground. So, what do you think happens to their carefully controlled world now that he's finally back?